Hey everyone, uh, I need you to think about someone specific right now. Someone who made detachment not a choice but a necessity. You know exactly who I'm talking about. That person who treated you in a way that left you with no option but to pull back, to create distance, to protect yourself by emotionally disconnecting from someone you might have genuinely cared about. And now you're in this space, this detached space, this separate space, and you're wondering what this all means and where you actually are in this process. Welcome back. It's Anna. And today I want to talk about someone who gave you no choice but to detach. Not because I can tell you what's ahead in your future, but because I want to help you understand what might be happening in your present moment, what this detachment actually means, what you might be experiencing right now that you haven't fully named yet. You gotta hear this, because detachment isn't failure, and understanding what's currently happening inside you might change everything. Let me start by talking about what forced detachment actually feels like. You may be in a space right now where you're emotionally numb around this person, where thinking about them doesn't create the same spike of feeling it used to, where their name doesn't make your chest tight anymore, where you can talk about them or think about them with a kind of flatness that surprises you. Some people experience this numbness as concerning. They wonder if something is wrong with them, if they're cold, if they've lost their capacity to care, because the feelings they used to have were so intense and now there's just is less than #0. 5# is greater than nothing. But that's not coldness. That's protection. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it's supposed to do when someone becomes unsafe for your well-being. It might feel like you're going through your days and this person barely crosses your mind anymore. And when they do, it's factual rather than emotional. You remember they exist. You remember what happened, but it doesn't land in your body the way it used to. Let's pause for a moment because the shift is significant. This reflection invites you to consider, when did you notice that thinking about this person stopped hurting? You may not have registered the exact moment. It probably happened gradually. One day you realized you went a whole day without thinking about them. Then a few days. Then you thought about them, but it didn't create that familiar ache. It's possible you're currently in a stage of detachment where the person still exists in your awareness, but they don't have emotional power over you anymore. They're a fact, a memory, a person who was significant but isn't anymore. Some people feel guilty about this shift, especially if they loved this person. They think detachment means they didn't really care, or that something is wrong with their capacity for connection. But detachment doesn't mean you didn't love them. It means you loved yourself more. It means you chose your peace over a connection that was costing you too much. This reflection invites you to consider, what did this person's behavior cost you that made detachment necessary? Let me talk about what giving you no choice actually means. It's possible this person repeatedly crossed boundaries you set. They ignored your needs. They dismissed your feelings. They made you feel small or wrong or too much. They were unreliable in ways that made you unable to trust them. They hurt you and then made you feel bad for being hurt. Some people give you no choice but to detach through a pattern of behavior that makes staying connected genuinely harmful, not just uncomfortable, actively damaging to your mental health. Your self-worth, your peace. You may have tried everything before detaching. You probably communicated. You probably gave chances. You probably hoped they'd change. You probably made yourself smaller trying to make the relationship work. And nothing worked because the problem wasn't your approach. The problem was their unwillingness or inability to show up differently. It can feel like you're replaying moments in your head even now and seeing clearly what you couldn't see before. How many times you compromised yourself, how many times you accepted unacceptable treatment, how many times you talked yourself into giving one more chance. This reflection invites you to consider what finally made you realize that detachment was your only healthy option. There's something about the present moment you're in that I want to explore. It's possible you're currently experiencing a strange kind of peace, not happiness necessarily, but quiet space, room to breathe that didn't exist when you were still emotionally entangled with this person. Some people describe early detachment as feeling lighter, like they were carrying a weight they didn't fully notice until they put it down, like their nervous system is finally relaxing after being on high alert for months or years. You may be sleeping better, feeling more present in your daily life, having energy for things and people you were too drained to engage with before. These are signs that detachment is serving you, that the distance is healing, or you might be experiencing waves, good days where you feel strong and clear, and then days where you miss the person or doubt your decision or wonder if you overreacted. Both experiences are normal. Detachment isn't linear. It's a process with ups and downs. This reflection invites you to consider, what does your current emotional landscape around this person actually look like? Getting honest about where you are helps you know what you need. If you're stable in your detachment, you need to protect it. If you're wavering, you need to remind yourself why you detached in the first place. Let me talk about what might be happening with the actual person you detached from. It's possible they've noticed the shift, that your energy toward them is different, that you're no longer reaching out, no longer trying, no longer emotionally available the way you used to be. Some people don't notice someone's detachment until it's complete. They were so used to that person being there, being available, being invested, that the gradual withdrawal didn't register. And then suddenly they look up and realize that person is gone. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, completely. You may have no idea how they're responding to your detachment. And honestly, that's okay. That's even healthy. Their response isn't your responsibility anymore. But it's possible they're uncomfortable with it. Maybe they're trying to pull you back in. Maybe they're reaching out more now that you're reaching out less. Maybe they're noticing your absence in ways they never noticed your presence. This reflection invites you to consider, have you noticed any shift in how this person is behaving since you detached? And more importantly, is that shift genuine, or is it just them trying to regain access they've lost? There's something about your boundaries right now that's critical. It's possible you're being tested. This person might be trying to re-engage. They might be reaching out with apologies or explanations or promises to do better. And you're having to decide whether your detachment is permanent or whether there's room for reconnection under different terms. Some people detach as a final boundary. This is done. This connection is over. There's no pathway back regardless of what the other person does or says. Other people detach as a protective boundary. This is what I need right now. But if significant, real change happens, there might be room to reconsider later. You may need to get clear about which category you're in. Because if this person is pushing to reconnect and you haven't decided whether that's even a possibility, you're going to be making decisions in reactive moments rather than from a grounded place. This reflection invites you to consider, is your detachment from this person permanent or conditional? There's no wrong answer. but knowing your answer protects you from being swayed by temporary emotions or manipulative tactics. Let me slow down and talk about something really important. Detachment doesn't mean you never cared. It doesn't mean the relationship didn't matter. It doesn't mean you're cold or heartless or incapable of commitment. It means you recognize that staying connected was costing you more than you could afford to pay. And you chose yourself. That's not selfishness. That's survival. That's self-respect. Some people will try to make you feel guilty for detaching. They'll tell you that real love doesn't give up, that real commitment doesn't walk away, that you should have tried harder or been more patient or given more chances. But those people don't live in your body. They don't feel what you feel when you're around this person. They don't carry the weight of trying to make something work that fundamentally doesn't. You may be carrying some of that guilt yourself, wondering if you're the problem, if you're too sensitive or too demanding or not forgiving enough. This reflection invites you to consider what would change if you fully accepted that detachment was the healthiest choice you could make. Let me talk about what you might be learning about yourself through this process. It's possible this experience is teaching you things you needed to learn about your limits, about what you will and won't tolerate, about the difference between loving someone and losing yourself in trying to love someone. Some people discover through forced detachment that they're stronger than they thought, that they can survive losing someone they thought they couldn't live without, that they have a core of self-respect that won't let them accept mistreatment indefinitely. You may be discovering your own resilience right now, your capacity to choose yourself even when it hurts, your ability to hold a boundary even when every part of you wants to soften it. This reflection invites you to consider, what are you learning about yourself through this detachment? Those lessons matter. They inform how you show up in every future connection. They protect you from repeating the same patterns with different people. There's something about your future relationships that's worth discussing. Not predictions about specific people or outcomes, but patterns. The way this experience might influence how you engage going forward. It's possible you're currently more cautious than you used to be, more protective of your energy, more aware of red flags, more willing to create distance early when something doesn't feel right. Some people who've had to forcibly detach become better at voluntary detachment. They learn to recognize earlier when a connection isn't serving them. They don't wait until they're completely depleted before pulling back. You may be developing that skill right now without even realizing it. A sharper sense of what works for you and what doesn't. A clearer understanding of your non-negotiables. This reflection invites you to consider, how has this experience changed what you're willing to accept in relationships? That shift might be one of the most valuable things to come from a painful situation. Let me talk about what you actually need right now in this detached space. It's possible you need validation that you made the right choice, that detachment wasn't an overreaction or a failure, that choosing your peace over a toxic connection was actually the bravest, healthiest thing you could do. Some people need permission to not go back. Even if the person apologizes, even if they promise change, even if others pressure you to give another chance, you're allowed to be done, permanently done. You may need space to grieve, because even when detachment is necessary, it still involves loss. Loss of the person, loss of what you hoped the relationship could be, loss of the version of yourself that existed in that connection. Or you might need encouragement to stay detached when you're tempted to re-engage, when you're lonely, or when they're being persistent, or when you start remembering the good parts and forgetting why you left. This reflection invites you to consider What do you actually need right now to honor your detachment? Getting clear on that helps you ask for it from yourself, from trusted people, from resources that support your healing. There's something about self-trust that I want to address. It's possible you're doubting yourself, wondering if you were too harsh, too quick to detach, too unwilling to work through difficulties. Questioning whether the problem was actually them or whether it was your inability to handle normal relationship challenges. But here's what some people discover. If you had to detach to protect your well-being is less than #0, 5# is greater than the relationship wasn't working. Healthy relationships don't require one person to completely disconnect to survive them. You may need to trust that the part of you that chose detachment was operating from wisdom, from self-preservation, from a deep knowing that staying was harmful, even if you couldn't fully articulate why at the time. This reflection invites you to consider, what if you trusted that detachment was exactly what you needed to do? You remain in complete control of what happens from here. You can maintain your detachment, you can deepen it, you can make it permanent, or if the situation genuinely changes, if this person does real work and demonstrates real transformation over time, you can choose to cautiously re-engage with strong boundaries. The power is yours. It always has been. You may notice that reading this has clarified something, maybe why you detached, maybe what you're experiencing now, maybe what you need going forward. Whatever it is, honor it, use it, let it guide you. Take what resonates, discard what doesn't. Trust what you know about your own experience. Before we close, I want to ask you something. What was the moment you knew you had no choice but to detach from someone? What finally made it clear that distance was your only option? Drop it in the comments, because I think a lot of people need to hear they're not alone in this. And this, what has detachment taught you about yourself that you didn't know before? What would change if you fully trusted that choosing yourself was the right choice? Someone who gave you no choice but to detach. They showed you who they were. They showed you what they could offer. And it wasn't enough. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't sustainable. You gotta hear what's ahead. What's ahead is unknowable. But what's present right now, that's real. You're in a process of healing, of reclaiming yourself, of learning what you deserve and what you won't accept. Not eventually. Right now, today. Trust yourself with this. Trust that detachment isn't failure. Trust that protecting yourself is loving yourself. Trust that some connections need to end for you to be whole. You don't need to justify your detachment to anyone. Not to them, not to others, not even to yourself. Your peace is explanation enough. I'll see you in the next one. And listen, some people are meant to teach us what we won't tolerate, what we won't accept, what we won't sacrifice ourselves for. Those lessons are painful, but they're priceless. Honor your detachment. It's protecting you.